you've had a frenetic few weeks.
It's been fun.
iPhone 6 Plus, iOS 8, Yosemite, iPad Air 2, obviously Apple Watch, Apple Pay. Have I missed anything else?
You hit on most of them. iMac, huge Retina screen on iMac. It's killer.
So you've had an amazing run. I want to talk to you about some of those individual products and some of the issues and the implications they raise. But let me just start, if I may, by asking you in general terms. As you can categorize those as iPhone, this tremendously successful product which you're constantly refining. Apple Watch, very interesting, and we'll get onto that. A new product, Apple Pay, which is a payment platform. As you look forward to the strategic direction of the company, which of those categories is going to be the principal driver of growth? What's going to produce more for the top line of Apple in 3-5 years' time?
Well, the phone right now is the majority of the company's revenue and profits, but that doesn't mean the other businesses aren't really important. And of course, the phone is the sum of many things. And so Apple Pay is included in the phone. We have many services included in the phone. We have a $18 billion software and services business that doesn't get noticed a lot, but it's huge and incredibly important to our ecosystem. And so that's important. So in the time frame that you're talking about, smartphones are going to keep growing. And it's always a debate about how much they grow per year, but in the long arc of time, there's going to be a lot more smartphones sold. And they're going to continue to get better and better. And I think we did really well this year. I'm really proud of the products this year, as I have been every year, but I'm especially proud this year. So I think that in that period of time, the iPhone is still going to be the majority, at least 50%, of the company's revenue and profits. That's how I would see it. But the thing about it is, though, Jerry, is last year, which just ended in September for us, our revenues were 180 plus billion. And so 50%, the other 50% or whatever, 40% or whatever it might wind up being, is still a lot. And so there's a lot of revenues outside of the iPhone. The Mac business grew remarkably last quarter. It was up 21% in units. And people a few years ago, or just a year ago, or 2 years ago, thought the PC business was kind of dead. And the PC business is going down. That was correct, but the Mac business has done well. And so we've kept investing there. We've kept innovating there. And we think the Mac has a great future because people still like to sit at their desk and look at an extraordinary screen. And now we've made that even better with iMac. And they love taking portables with them, and we've got the best portables we've shipped. And I think iPad, I know there's always a debate with other people about the tablets, and I'm not going to support everybody else's tablets because I think there's some really awful things out there. But in terms of iPad, I think it's fantastic. And I think that there's never been a product in the history of consumer electronics that's gone in so many different markets so fast. We're in education, we're of course in consumer, but we're into enterprise as well. And when I look back at our history or the history of technology in general, you rarely ever see products move that fast to so many of these markets. And so over the long arc of time, I'm very excited about that business. The ecosystem also, as the install base grows, the ecosystem gets larger. It gets even better. And of course, we've now have Apple Pay, and I'd love to talk about that some if you want. And the watch is coming early next year. And I think the watch is profound. We're super excited about it, and we're not shipping it yet, and so everybody will have to see what they think when they start wearing it. But the thing that I'm really encouraged about is the constituencies that are looking at it. And these are vastly different kind of constituencies. There's sort of the technology sector that we always listen to very important for us. But health and fitness is a new area, and we have many people that are looking at it from that point of view and are really excited about what it offers. And then we've got the fashion thing, which is totally new for us and totally new for most technology companies, where I think I give Johnny and his team an incredible amount of credit here, because they saw that something you wear has to be more personable, more customizable, and that when you begin to wear something, it's got to look really cool. So it can't be geeky. You know, it says something about you. And so you saw what we announced. We didn't announce a product. We announced 3 collections that are literally millions of configurations.
Let me come to, I do want to get into the detail. Let's first of all take this Apple Pay issue, though, of course, which has come up, particularly over the weekend. You ran into some headwinds with CVS and Rite Aid and others. Is this a real challenge now, this whole issue of whether or not some of these retailers are actually not willing to cooperate?
I think it's a skirmish, is the way I would see it. It's a, you know, we started last Monday. We've been at it for a week, and I followed these numbers pretty closely. In the first 72 hours, we had gone over the 1 million mark on activations of cards. And Visa and MasterCard, we talked to these guys today, and they told us that if you sum up everyone else that's in the contactless mobile payment at the point of sale, we're already number 1. And not just number 1, but we're more than the total of all the other guys. And we've only been at it a week. And so I feel fantastic. I think it's great. Now, we've got a lot more to go. We've got a lot of merchants to sign up. We've got a lot more banks to sign up. And we have the whole rest of the world. We're only in the US right now. And so we're just getting started, but the early ramp looks fantastic. And I'm getting flooded with emails from customers that are just, you know, it's sort of that moment. You use the phone and that's all you have to do. You know, I went to the Whole Foods and did this, and it's unbelievable. You're no longer fishing for the credit card. You're no longer worried about the merchant losing your credit card. That happened all over the place last year, or this year and last year. And so I think it's the first and only mobile payment system that's both easy, private, and secure. So I think we hit on all 3 key points that the customer cares about. I think merchants have different objectives sometimes, but in the long arc of time, you only are relevant as a retailer or a merchant if your customers love you. I mean, we very much feel like that. And so we spend an enormous amount of time making sure every detail in our stores are both online and retail, and every customer touch point is exactly right. And so I think that you know, that over the long arc of time, retailers will step back and say, wait a minute, it's more secure. I don't know about you, but last year, I had to change out my credit cards twice. I'm sure there was probably some in the audience that had to do this too. This is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You know, you're going on all of these websites and changing, and you forget to do 1 or 2, and all of a sudden people think you don't pay your bills anymore. You know, and so this is a very key one, and the privacy piece, you know, we've said up front, we're going to be very different on this. We don't want to know what you buy, when you buy it. We don't want to know anything. And so we're not collecting your data. We're not Big Brother. We'll leave that to other people. And so we're on the outside of that.
Any nominees for that title?
Well, you can do that. And the big thing, Jerry, is it's easy. And honestly speaking, there was no other mobile payment system that we looked at, and we looked at everybody, that you could honestly say this is easier than the credit card. And we think it has to be. That's the first design point, is that it must be easier or consumers aren't going to use it.
And more secure. Let's move on quickly, because I want to, Apple Watch.
Yeah.
You left, as you said, it hasn't gone on sale yet. You left a few unanswered questions at your launch.
Yeah.
Battery life is one of those that's on people's minds. Am I going to be able to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and it'll still be running if I haven't charged it when I'm looking for a cab home late at night?
What we think is, and I said this at the event actually, is we think that people are going to use it so much that you're going to wind up charging it daily. That's what we think. Now,
Daily meaning like overnight, or you're going to have to charge it within the day to keep
overnight.
overnight?
That's what we think. And so now the use cases on this isn't like a notebook where there's a very well understood history of use cases. And so we can run those, we can quote, this has 9 hours, this has 10 hours, and you could be relatively assured of that. The phone now has that kind of history on it as well. The iPad has that kind of history. The watch, there's no history. And so we're looking at how much we use it. I guess there's a scenario where you use it less and you charge it less frequently, but that's true today for phones and iPads too, And so, but I think, given my own experience and others around me, that you're going to wind up charging it every day because you're going to use it so much that it's going to need to be charged. That's what I think.
Move on quickly to products you haven't announced, but maybe you will. You're always asked this question. TV, looking at it still. Is what's going on as you look at the TV market more generally, you look at things like what HBO are doing, you look at what the other content companies are doing and what the hardware companies are doing, you're getting closer to kind of having a model of what an Apple, the new Apple TV
I think what HBO is doing is very smart. I applaud what they're doing. I think that...
of course you do, because it cuts the cord, goes over the top, and enables people to buy Apple devices.
Well, it's not just that. It's that I think they're thinking about the consumer. And I think the content companies win just like any other company wins when they really focus on the consumer. And I think there's consumers out there that want HBO, but today it's too hard to buy. Who wants to go spend all their life on the phone to get it activated? You don't want to do that. We're too busy to do this. And so I think it's very clever what they did. And I think you'll see more content companies willing to do this, particularly if the mergers are allowed to occur.
And as a serious point, it does open up opportunities in the hardware space for you, right?
It does, and we're obviously very excited about that. But that's not just why I'm saying that. I think it's the right thing as a consumer. I think the current system has a lot to be desired. I think content is really great. But I think if you go beyond the content, we're living in the 1970s. Yes, we've got a faster pipe, and a faster pipe is good, but the interface into your TV, it's literally as you've gone in a time capsule, and it's 30 years old. It hasn't kept up. It doesn't. You work on your computer and your iPads and your iPhones in one way, and then you go in your living room and you've stepped back in time. And so I think there's a lot to be done in this area. What we'll do, I don't want to be so clear on, but
go on.
But it's an area of a lot of interest, and I do think that I'm optimistic that there can be something great done in this space.
Let's move on. I want to talk about. I want to ask you about some of the broader strategic questions for Apple. This phenomenally successful iPhone, which continues to churn out extraordinary profits, extraordinary margins for you. You've got a very high margin, relatively low volume in terms of total share of the smartphone market. Now you're down about, 15, 16% maybe globally of the smartphone market. That model has been compared to the Mac versus PC model of old. You have these beautiful devices, which you were first with, which people adopted very, very quickly, but which were a small and smaller share of the market. And in the end, the Windows model, the Windows approach, blew away the Mac in terms of market share. Is that a risk here, that as you continue to pursue that high margin, high end sector of the market, that actually you'll see, and Android gets more and more usage, that you will see that will just become the smartphone of general use?
I don't think all market share is created equal. And our objective has never been to make the most. We've always been about making the best. I think the analogy to the Mac isn't a good one. Because in the early days, I wasn't at Apple, but it's clear when you look back what was happening was that the operating system, in terms of the Mac platform, there weren't enough apps on the Mac platform. And so customers begin to leave because there weren't enough apps. Look at iPhone and iPad. I get more customer notes than any CEO alive, I'm sure. I've gotten 0 saying you don't have enough apps on your platform. And so, we have 1.3 million apps, and generally speaking, developers are writing iOS apps first. They're easier to write. And when you really look at the fragmentation of Android, it's far better to go put your wood behind an iOS arrow and do that, even if you then subsequently port to Android. And many people do that. So I think the analogy's not good. I would also say, last year, iOS devices, we sold almost a $250 million. And so I wouldn't call that low volume.
It's all relative, right? In the grand scheme
I
of
also
things.
would say,
Android.
even in your Mac analogy, would you rather, if you could own anything you wanted today, would you rather own the Macintosh business or any of the Windows OEMs? Any one you want. Which one do you want? Do you want Dell? Do you want
Give me a choice.
HP?
I'll have both if I can. Thank you.
Well, take them both.
Yeah.
Would you rather have the Mac or both of those? I mean, I'm serious. What would you rather have?
I can't answer. I mean, it's not fair for me to ask that.
But no, I can interview too.
No, you're very welcome. You're welcome to do it, but I'm not at liberty to answer that question.
No, let me answer it. To me, I'd rather much own a business that's innovative, that's pushing the envelope, that people are using, that where the usage is high, the customer satisfied, and yes, at the end of the day, if you do all of those things right, you're going to make more money because people want those products more. And so, now I don't think, despite having said that, I don't think the analogy is any good for all the reasons I said. But I just didn't want to diminish the Mac because sure. I look at it and say, wait a minute, who in this whole audience would rather own a Windows OEM than the Mac? Would anybody? See, but look at the audience. This is a smart group of people, and there's not one.
Okay, you'll have to tell us whether you prefer to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal or the New York. So if you do that, or some of our competitors, maybe we can get into that kind of a conversation. Let me move on. You have got your favorite pen pal at the moment. It's probably Carl Icahn, I'm guessing, right? You seem to spend a lot of time communicating with him. He makes a lot of criticisms of Apple. He's very positive about your leadership and says what a great job you're doing. But he makes, as other activist investors have done, this point that you have a tremendous amount of cash still there sitting on your balance sheet, that you have a valuation that doesn't really reflect the extraordinary potential still of the company. And you do have a valuation that, it's remarkable for the growth that you've had and the growth that people perceive. You're still sitting at a valuation which is roughly the same as Walmart's and McDonald's. I checked the numbers earlier today. You obviously have moved in this direction. You've buybacks, dividends, but are you going to do more?
Well, we currently are doing the largest one in the history of the corporate world.
Still leaves you with a lot of cash.
And
right?
well, we've announced a $130 billion program. That's a combination of dividends and share repurchase. Last quarter, we repurchased $17 billion, so $45 billion for the year. And so this is a lot. I don't think anybody would look at that and say that's not a lot. Yes, we have some cash. But in the big thing is what I focus on more than anything is the products, the management, the strategy. And if those are right and we're executing like crazy, then obviously also we have some cash, and with that cash we first invest in the business, and we buy companies, we buy a lot of tooling and investments in new products in our pipeline, et cetera. You can look at our CapEx, we're spending a fortune. But we do have money left over, and we obviously want to optimize the value. And so I don't spend a lot of time talking to Carl. I've talked to him 2 or 3 times or so, right? However, there are some things I agree with him on. I agree that the company's undervalued. That's the reason we're buying back shares. And I agree with him that the product and the strategy is great, right? I think he's been very complimentary on that, which I appreciate. And so the only thing that if there's been any disconnect, has been over the amount. And I think we're doing the right thing there. And what we try to do is we're on this annual cadence of going out to all of our shareholders to get input. And then we're on an annual cadence to tweak that program. And right now we're in the collection stage. And then when we get into next year, the sort of similar time frame that we did this year, we will update everybody on it. That means we may change it, we may not, but we'll say something then. And so I think that Apple is undervalued, and I think a share repurchase is a good thing for us right now. But it's a second priority to the investing in the business. This is number one. And but we have a few dollars left over, and so we're going to...
Part of it's a tax issue, right? I mean, you've addressed this issue carefully. There's the issue of very high corporate rate of tax internationally, US corporate rate of tax internationally. But you've also been, criticized heavily for the way in which perhaps you've taken advantage of some of the, shall we say, lighter touch tax regimes around the world. We've all heard about the double Irish and the Dutch sandwich.
We haven't done the double Irish Dutch sandwich or whatever it's called. I don't even know what that is, really.
Well, you know the general point.
I do know the general point.
You've been under a lot of criticism for not, for the fact that you.
We have been under criticism, but let's back up for a minute from this, because I think this is important to put in perspective. We're the largest taxpayer in the U.S. We paid over $7 billion in U.S. taxes, and our marginal rate in the U.S. is over 30. I don't think anybody would look at that and say, you're not paying your fair share.
Combined federal and state, is it? Or is that...
if you combine federal and state, it's over 35.
Right.
And so we don't have a lot of tax breaks. We used to get an R&D tax credit before it expired. Maybe that's reinstalled, maybe it's not. But right now, it's been dormant for over a year. On the international side, yes, our tax rate is less. And I know that there's a debate in the United States that says some people believe that if you develop something in the United States, it doesn't matter where you sell it, that it should be taxed as if it should be taxed on the full bore U.S. Right. But that's not the law.
Right.
That may be what some people want the law to be.
Right.
But if it were the law, the U.S. it would not be good for the U.S.
The answer presumably is to reduce U.S. corporate tax rates, right?
We need a comprehensive tax reform. The code is this many pages long, and it's a mess for everybody. Anybody that has a corporation knows this is a mess. When your CFO is signing something that the tax return is this much, there's something wrong. And so I'm hoping that if we get through another election cycle, some real work can be done, and we can kind of get past this, because I think it's not smart for all of these companies, including us, to have all this money offshore, which can't be invested in the United States. This is not smart for the U.S. And so I hope that things are worked through. What we've said is that we think it would be reasonable to say, force a tax on the offshore piece, but let it all flow free. Let the capital have a free flow. And so we might pay some more taxes in that approach, but we think it's great for the country, and we think it would be good for us too to have more flexibility. That's not, unfortunately, as you know, we're sort of at a logjam in Washington. And so these harder things have been very difficult to get energy around to get done.
I want to get to questions from the audience, all these Mac owners in the audience who are going to have questions for you. But very quickly, just one other quick issue on privacy. Obviously, lots of concerns about it. You have these issues of both privacy and security. Actually, you have these issues of security breaches. So you've some of your competitors take a somewhat different approach. You're explain to me what you think everybody should be doing with regard to protecting individuals' privacy and making sure that you address the concerns that people have.
Well, let me explain what we're doing. What our value system is, that we believe that your data is yours, and that we're not about collecting every detail about you and knowing what time you go to bed and where you spend your money and what the temperature is in your house and what things you searched on, or none of that.
There are other companies that do that, apparently?
Well,
Oh, there is.
what we do, we don't read your email, we don't read your iMessages, we don't do any of this.
Right.
And so we've designed, and we did this years ago, this didn't just start, we designed iMessage such that we don't keep any of it. And so if somebody comes to get it, a bad guy or government, we can't provide it. If somebody tries to get your FaceTime records, we can't supply it. And with iOS 8, we added some things to that to further encrypt. That puts the user in charge. And there's been some comments from some law enforcement types that said, hey, this is not good. We don't have the flexibility we did before. I look at that and say, look, if law enforcement wants something, they should go to the user and get it. It's not for me to do that. I mean, it's sort of like, also, by the way, if I wouldn't ever do this, but if you design something where the key's under the mat, the bad guy can get that too.
Right.
It's just not the good guy.
Right.
And unfortunately, we all know who live in this internet world, there's a lot of bad guys on the internet. And things are happening every day. And so, yes, we're designing a Fort Knox kind of thing. And I think our users want that. And they don't want us to have the data either, and so we're not taking on the data. And so that's our value system. I think people are free to do what they want to. This is America. I think that what you do should be clear. I think people should understand what you're doing and what the implications of it are. And not just the first order implications, but the second, third, and fourth order, because when you begin to have so many data points, there's a lot they can tell about Jerry. And you have to decide, are you comfortable with that or are you not?
Right.
And I think some people would say, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. And some people would say, no way. And I think it's a user kind of choice. So that's how we look at it.
Thanks, Tim. Questions, please. This is your opportunity to ask the Apple CEO some questions. Yes, here at the front. Please wait for the microphone, which will get to you very expeditiously.
Thank you. My name is Ted Myerson. I'm with Ananos, and I have a question for you about privacy. Perfect topic here. That you've done a very good job in not only putting your products in this perspective of privacy, but also communicating privacy as a differentiator. What do you think may change, or what do you think may happen where we either reach that tipping point or that spookiness feeling where the rest of the world really recognizes what all these other companies are doing with our data through the products and everything else we do?
I think it'll take some kind of event because people aren't shaken until something major happens. And then when that happens, everybody wakes up and says, oh my God, and they make a change. And so what that event is, I don't know. But I'm pretty convinced that it's going to happen. And it's just a matter of what and when it occurs. And so that's how I feel about it.
Questions, more questions, please. Yes, over here. There we go. You got a mic right next
Right
to you.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, as someone who's accumulated just under 40,000 music tracks in his library, I have many friends, relatives, salivating for their 160 iPod Classic, only to find out that you discontinued manufacturing it 2 months ago. Why?
Because we couldn't get the parts anymore.
There you go.
Not even in China?
Not even anywhere, not even anywhere on Earth. They're not made anymore. And so we had the choice of either doing a total redesign, a totally new project, or trying to get people to go to the iPod Touch if they wanted it's sort of a dedicated music device. iPod Touch is not really a dedicated music device, but I think you know what I'm saying. And we're shipping a lot of flash in it now. And so you can get almost all the ones that you could get on your Classic. Not quite yet. Over time, that might change. And so it wasn't a matter of where I was swinging the axe saying, let me see what I can kill today. It was The engineering work to design a whole new product was pretty massive, and the number of people that wanted it very small. Sometimes we decide to do those anyway, like Mac Pro. We're doing those for our creative customers. But in the case of iPod, I felt there were reasonable alternatives there. And I'm sorry if you didn't feel that way, because I want to keep you as a customer. But that was the rationale.
Another question. Yes, over there, that Tim.
Thank you. I'm George with Orange. Do you have any plan to develop a lower cost iPhone for the developing countries like in Africa?
Yeah, you know, this is a good question. The short answer is we develop things as low a price as we can go while maintaining the quality and experience that we want to do. And we'll never fall below that bar no matter what. Because we think doing so makes us a company other than Apple. And there's plenty of companies other than that already. There's plenty of companies that play in that space. And so, you know, so I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but we'll go as low as we can while maintaining the customer experience and we want it to be an Apple product.
One final question, quick, anybody? Yes, ma'am, here.
Thank you.
Kira.
You've brought human-computer interaction to a completely new level that people even consider the computer or the phone part of their own body. What is your take about personal health and taking it actually to the next level as becoming part of the body?
I think it's a huge opportunity, and I think not just that it's an opportunity from a business point of view, but I think it's an imperative from a social point of view. And so I think that when you're dealing with wellness, fitness, and the proactive pieces of health, I don't mean, I don't see Apple getting into cancer research and this kind of stuff, but that's well beyond our expertise and vectors in life. But I think in terms of things that you wear and things that you can know about your body and be able to proactively reach out to your doctor when certain things happen, I think those things are right up our alley. And I think it's something that the world needs. And so I like, you know, Apple is about making great products that enrich people's lives. We wouldn't build just a great product. We would only build it if it also enriched somebody. I think this is a fantastic example of something that enriches lives. And so this is something that's highly interesting to us. And as you notice, the watch has a health and fitness component. And so this is where we're starting. Where we go in the long term is we'll talk about later. But it's an area that I'm very excited about from multiple points of view. The opportunity, the need for the world to have these type of products.
One final question from me. You've just heard Jack Ma express admiration for Apple, talk about the possibility of, talked a lot about marriage between Apple Pay and Alipay. Is that any often?
We're going to talk about getting married later this week, so we'll see. Did Jack leave?
No, he's still
Oh,
here.
no, he's still here. And so I have the utmost respect for Jack. And what we love to partner with people that are wicked smart, that have flexible teams, that are product-based, and that push us. And we like to push them. And so those partners we work the best with. And I think Jack has a company that's exactly like that. And I love what he's done. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he has brilliant people in the company. And so if we can find some areas of common space, I love it. I love partnering with people like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Tim Cook.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Gerard.
Gerard.
Thanks, Al. So good to see you.